Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. Doing a bit of an earlier stream today. Oh, let me make sure my audio is working. It is. I was doing some experimentation earlier today where I thought maybe I had, well, I'll be honest, I tried a couple things. What I tried first was I tried setting up OBS, which is a very well-known piece of software that some people had said, oh, try that. Try OBS. That might work for you. And I tried it, and it was not ideal. I'll say it like that. Just wasn't, not going to work. OBS is just not going to be the solution for it. I then tried Streamlabs, and the biggest problem that I'm encountering with both of these things is that neither of them is properly seeing the mirroring software that I'm using for the iPad. And the issue is that, as far as I can tell, and if anybody knows, if anybody has a solution or has an alternative, what's the word for it, piece of software to use, I'll be happy to try it. So I'm using something that is called Reflector 4. And up until, again, this recent update, and I'm not going to turn this into, I promise, I'm not going to turn this into another rant on the Twitch Studio Beta, but up until that update, it had been working very well. I mean, it dropped its connection here and there, but I sort of expect that because it's not a native Apple app, and so, you know, whether Apple will confirm it or not, it's very, very well known that Apple doesn't like to let anybody use stuff that isn't theirs on their platform. And, you know, fine. This got around it, though. This allowed me to do the stream, and still be able to, because the problem is when you do, like, what do they call it, AirPlay or whatever of the iPad, the issue with that is that it dominates the whole screen. So you get basically the iPad in the center and then a black screen on both sides. Now, you know, that's not necessarily untenable. I could put up with that, I guess. But it's an inelegant solution that Apple has implemented for some reason. And you can go on you can go into the Apple support communities and you will see a lot of people that are not happy about it because it really doesn't make sense for all the magic stuff that Apple can do, or all the really powerful technological abilities that it has. It doesn't seem to be able to do this one very basic thing, which is to mirror the iPad screen only and not blank out the rest of the screen. I mean, that just seems like something that should be a very simple option, and yet it isn't. And so this program is the only one I've found that looked like it was a reputable one that actually does exactly that. It just replicates the iPad screen on the Mac and doesn't cut off anything, or doesn't cut off anything, and also doesn't take up space it doesn't need to. So, you know, I kind of went, because OBS and Streamlabs both, I sort of got OBS to see the app, but it really didn't want to. You could tell there were lots of problems. And then once I got that to work, I realized that the chat wasn't going to work. And it's not like there's an active chat on every stream. It's not that way. But at the same time, I just thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to end up fighting with another program just to try to get it close to what Twitch can do. Or I can just kind of, and you're going to see this in a minute, so I'm going to hit this. Or I can just kind of cover up what Twitch Studio is somehow doing with this program, pending either an update to this program or to Reflector, whatever. But honestly, I kind of went, yeah, it is not going to be worth it. And plus, I don't know whether the stream would even function properly. OBS and the Streamlabs thing just seemed way overpowered for what I'm doing. So all I did was I basically just gamed the system here. So if you've seen the last two streams, you'll remember that over on the right, where the blue astronaut is now, there was a green block, almost like a green screen block, because somehow now it's interpreting the Reflector software as essentially doing the same thing Apple does, except it's doing this horrific green block to the right. I don't understand it. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. So all I did was I took 2 images of mine, which are the astronauts, and I grabbed a space background and I cut them essentially into 2 halves, and I've resized the 2 halves. Now you can kind of tell if you look in the upper right of the iPad screen, right? So here, I'll give you a little hint. So if you look up, oh, I didn't realize I'm not on a single layer. Let me go to an actual layer here. So if you look up there, you see that little purple bit of rounded whatever? That's what's actually behind the astronaut image on the left, and then on the right, it's green. Now, it's in it. I have no idea. I have no idea what's going on, but this is the most elegant way. The only problem is if I were to turn the iPad sideways, I'm pretty sure you'd see the trick. Yeah, see that? It's cutting that off because that actually expands properly. So I'm just going to stick with this. I'm going to stick with portrait mode, which is fine because I work perfectly fine in portrait mode. But anyway, I just thought to myself, okay, you're going to do all this effort, and there's no way to know if it's even going to work properly because then you have to make sure a whole bunch of other things work. And for all my complaints, Twitch Studio does have the chat integrated. It does have everything very, very simply put together, and it works. And the update does. I have to give credit where it's due. You have to be fair. It does appear to have fixed whatever the CPU problem was because I noticed in the last 2 streams, and I'm looking at the one now, it has not crossed the 50% mark, or at least not consistently. Whereas I would inevitably hit 100% with the software in its previous iteration. So they fixed one thing and broke another, which is disappointing. But I mean, I guess I'd rather it fault on the side of not destroying the CPU. That's sort of good because I can basically make this work this way. The problem is if I ever have to turn the iPad sideways, it's going to look like a mess. But one problem at a time. I'm kind of hoping by the time I do that again, maybe they'll fix the software. But 85% of the work I do is in portrait mode anyway, so it doesn't matter. So we're going to keep going with Cuphulhu for a bit today. And yeah, so that's why the background is now different. I got to fine tune that and figure that out, but it's better than what it was before. So we'll see. Maybe there will be an addressing of this issue by Twitch, but I don't know. I don't even know honestly, I'm not really even sure what the Twitch support model for this software is, since it's a beta and it's free. As I've often said on our main shows, the problem with free software is you get what you pay for. So I don't know whether there will be any attempt to fix this at all. Hard to say. But we'll see. And it's not a big deal. I mean, I can work like this. It's okay. Yes, it's not great. But since I rarely turn my iPad sideways, I mean, it's just if the green block is just so off-putting to the eye that it does make it tough for me to just want to leave it there and it doesn't look right. I mean, besides the fact that you can tell it's not supposed to look like that, it's essentially shunting the iPad screen all the way to the left, almost to the extent where it's trying to display, because iPads, just like a lot of stuff now, can have multiple pages. It's almost like it's trying to display the iPad's full page length or something. I don't know. I can't figure it out. Anyway, it really, really doesn't matter, and I am not going to complain about it all day, or all stream, I should say, all day. But I did give OBS and Slobs, I guess they call it, Streamlabs OBS. I took a look at them. I installed them. I started playing around a little bit, and I just realized that they're really way more tool in both cases than I need, and both of them didn't seem to really recognize the Reflector software either. So I don't know. If I can find an alternative to this, something that's not Reflector that does the same job, then I'd be happy to try it again. But barring that, I think I'm just going to deal with this. You know, I'll periodically just check to see if maybe, the next big update, maybe that Twitch Studio does, I'll look again, because maybe they will fix it. Maybe they will, because it does seem to be some kind of program interaction thing. it's clearly that it doesn't know how to handle the iPad mirroring. But that's, hey, that happens. It's okay. Not a big deal. So we're just doing some black marks here for the Cuphulhu image. Yeah. Just knock this out real quick. And then we can do some detail work on this. Because I kind of like this image. I don't really know what I'm going to do with it necessarily. Although immediately I thought, oh, this would look kind of funny on a shirt. I got to look up some of the Lovecraftian. There's phrases that are used with Cthulhu, like his cultist chant. I'm wondering if I can modify one of those to be like a latte thing. Like there's something they yell. It's like Riley or Riley. It's like Rye latte. You know what I mean? Something like that. So there's, and with the logo and stuff, there's stuff I can play with on this. I actually think this image is going to turn out quite nicely. I hope in the end. We'll see. But I have some hope for this one being a little bit of a kind of fun, quirky thing. But we're well away from that. We're still just basically fleshing this idea out. But I'm not going to worry. I'm really not going to worry about refining this too much, or being too, worried about. I think this works as a nice rough image. Like I really do like the basic layout of this thing. I think this is fine the way it is. So I'm really not overly concerned about fleshing it out too much. Pardon me, I'm getting a drink coffee here. You know what's funny about me and coffee? Just a complete aside. I am a coffee drinker. I drink coffee every day. Usually 2 cups. Occasionally, days like today, I'm actually having 3. Actually, well, I guess okay, it depends on what you define as a cup. If you define a cup as 8 ounces, I normally have 2 cups a day. And so then this would count as 16 plus 11. So, I mean, this is closer to 5, I guess, because I have large coffee mugs. But generally during the day, I normally am hovering right around 2 cups. So I guess today is 5 because of the size of these cups. So I drink coffee all the time. I'm not one of those people who has a problem if I don't drink coffee. My wife has that, where if she doesn't drink coffee, because she's cut down on her coffee intake gradually. Just like Lando, my co-host, has cut down on it because I think he was running into some health stuff with it, where maybe the caffeine was not agreeing with him very well. It was making his heart race, stuff like that. So he's cut out caffeine, which he did gradually, I think by a quarter cup or so over a series of time, to avoid the exact same thing that happens to my wife when she stops drinking coffee, which is she starts getting these really bad headaches. I don't really get that. I'm not going to say I never do. I do occasionally get headaches if I don't have coffee, but it's not a guaranteed thing, which is sort of strange because most people I know who drink a lot of coffee or drink coffee regularly, I shouldn't say a lot. I certainly don't drink as much coffee as some people I know who drink a lot of worryingly amounts of coffee. But I really don't necessarily get a headache if I don't have coffee. I'm usually pretty fine. I mean, again, once in a while I will. But if coffee vanished tomorrow, because here's the other thing. Coffee never actually tastes as good to me as I think it will, which may sound like a strange thing, but I was going to say in my mind, but that's not really fair. I can actually taste what I think coffee should taste like, and yet coffee never does. Which I know that's a really bizarre sentence to say, but it's true. There's something where coffee doesn't really taste to me the way that I think it should. So I don't know why. So I always want to like my coffee more than I do. I end up drinking it because I'm not going to let it go to waste. I'm drinking some more right now. But it never quite tastes like I think it will. And I've tried coffee. I think this is one of those things. There's certain food items, drink items, where I have a mental flavor that is not an accurate reflection of the real flavor. I'm just checking. CPU, yeah, CPU is right around 30%. I have to give this program credit. They have to have optimized something because now the CPU utilization is great. It's just the mirroring that's a mess. But anyway, So yeah, coffee is one of those things where I always envision it tasting different than it does. And it's been that way for a very long time. I have no idea why. It's just the way my brain is wired. I don't know what to tell you. So, okay, let me briefly look up something because I'm pretty sure. I don't know if. Let's see here. Let me take a quick look. So yeah, so I like coffee. I do. And yet I don't know that I could really call myself a coffee connoisseur. I mean, whatever. What is a coffee connoisseur? It's nothing. But yeah, I don't know. It's bizarre. Okay, so Starbucks cups are white. Okay, because basically this is going to be a riff on a Starbucks cup. That's what I was going for. Okay, so yeah, it's strange. I don't know. Although the what do you call it's are green. So I think I'm going to make the stir wings are going to be green. Cuphulhu himself. Now the instinct is red eyes. The problem is then it's really going to look like Man-Thing. So I think I'm going to try a different color with the eyes. Maybe a purple. Something different. I'm not going to just go with red eyes. That feels like the easy way to go. So maybe something like this kind of color for the eyes. Now this is just placeholder. So let's switch over to painting. I'm not 100% yet on what the eyes are going to be, but let's go with purple because again, Cthulhu is kind of a watery creature. So I want to kind of reflect watery. So this may change. I may try to go with like ocean hues or something like that. I'm going to go with some kind of, like a teal. Ooh, teal. Is that a teal? Sort of. Yeah, that's a tealy color. You don't see a lot of teal anymore. You know, teal was a big thing way back in the 80s, which I'm sure for some viewers who are younger is a time you know nothing about. But teal was a big color back then. You saw a lot of colors that utilized teal. And I've always liked teal. I've always thought it's a good color. Now, don't get me wrong. Like almost every color, it can be badly used. There are ugly shades of teal. And not every car works for teal. Specifically, the cars that generally work best are sport cars. So your Camaros, your IROC Zs. I don't even know if they make IROC Z anymore. I think they still make Camaro. They stopped Camaros for a while. They brought them back. So I don't even know if they make IROC Zs anymore. That was a type of Camaro. Corvettes, which I know they still make Corvettes, although they are unrecognizable to people like me who are fans of the older style of the... Actually, I shouldn't say that. If I say older body style of Corvette, a lot of people are going to then jump to like 50s, 60s, and that is not what I'm talking about. I believe it's the C3 series. Okay, it's going to bug me if I don't get this right, because I used to know this right off the top of my head. I believe it's the C3 Corvette body style, which are the ones I like. Particularly, yes, it's definitely the C3s. Yes, and I tend to like the ones that are in the second half of the 70s. 75 through 80. Particularly 77, 78, 79. Those are the really good years. Taking a drink of coffee. 1 second. Those are, without even a doubt in my mind, the greatest looking cars I've ever seen. Now that statement to some people will be like, wait a minute. You think Corvettes from the 70s are the best looking car that's ever been? Yes, I do. Sorry, I do. That's not to say that there aren't other beautiful cars, and many of them from the 70s. And honestly, the 80s too. I actually really like the ugly wedge, what were called the Italian wedge cars. A lot of Ferraris and Lamborghinis from the 80s that had that very, very distinctive, what was called the wedge. I like wedges. I like the DeLorean. And not just because it's in Back to the Future. I actually kind of like that car style. My wife cannot understand why. She finds that to be one of the ugliest cars that's ever been made. Plus, I know it is not an actually great car to have. It had lots of problems. Although I guess it's coming back as an electric vehicle now, which is interesting. I've seen some pictures of it. It looks okay. I don't know that it really has the distinctive style that the original did. Okay, so clearly this purple's going to have to change because these colors don't quite look right together. So either this blue is going to get modified. Maybe I'll skew it more blue. Or those purple eyes are going to come more towards the blue spectrum or the green spectrum. But I can, whoops, a little too far there. I can tell that the purple and blue, I don't think that's going to work. I don't think that's going to work. I'm not sure I'm digging that color combo. I kind of like the blue, though. I'm kind of liking the blue because it's not a color you see a lot of anymore. Again, the teal thing is, teal is seen as a very throwback color. And in fact, by many people, a lot of people hate teal. I mean, I've spoken with people who cannot stand teal as a color. And it's certainly not a subtle color. No doubt about that. It is a color that occupies its space. I'll say it like that. So yes, this is not a color that plays well with others generally. So I to a degree, understand why perhaps teal is not a favored color for many people. But I like it a lot. When used properly, as with all things, context and usage matter. So you can't just spray teal all over the place and expect it to work. It's not that kind of color. It's not a workhorse color like, say, a red, where, you could probably use red. I mean, I love red, so I have to admit that's also kind of a proclivity. I like red. But red is a color that I think has a lot of utility, meaning that you can use red in a lot of different ways, and red has a lot of versatility as a color. So not only can you use it a lot of different ways, I'm playing around with color here just so that, because this is the green of the stick. So I want to make sure these colors are not going to all clash with each other. It's actually a darker, more matty type of color, so I'm going to fix that. But I want to put this next to the teal because I'm really sort of anchoring around the teal right now. I kind of like that. So I want to make sure this is all going to make sense. That green isn't going to... I don't think that green conflicts. I think that green is also too intense. I want to try to make it look like the actual stirrers do. That's pretty close, I think. That's a pretty accurate stirrer green. It's kind of what they look like. I have one somewhere, but anyway. Another drink coffee. 1 second. Yeah, never tastes the way I think. So yeah, red is, the primary colors kind of are, because you can stretch those colors in so many interesting ways. So you can have, I can instantly create 3 types of red that are all very usable. But when you get into something like a teal, which isn't a pure color, it's not a primary color, it's a mix. It's a variation on a color. It gets trickier. Because, for example, just so you can see what I'm saying here. See, now you're just fading into a basic blue, but that doesn't look very good. That also doesn't look really... That would look okay on a different image, but I really want to stick with this. I like this. I may vary it a little. I'm not saying it'll necessarily stay exactly this teal the whole time, but I'm going to stick as close as I can to this as an anchor color because I just kind of like it. So, but yeah, with a red or another primary palette, that's why they're primaries, you have a lot more versatility. So a lot of people will start with a primary color and kind of work out of it, especially in painting. You start with a pure version of a color and then you start doing things with it. So teal is already kind of on a particular wavelength of blue and green. It is a blue-green. I don't know what else you would call it. But it's sort of like you can't get too far with teal, because if you go too far one way, and actually not even too far, if you go a little ways, I'll show you again. Instead of telling, showing, right? You start to view that hue, you're going to immediately, you're so quickly changing colors. There's the green. This would be the first impulse for most people on a Cuphulhu image, is to go with the green and not purple eyes. 1 second. This is where most people will go. That's why I want to kind of do something a little different. Those purple eyes got to change though. Let's just look at those now. Because the more I look at them, the more I'm not liking them. See, I don't want to just go red. Oh, maybe I go with... Oh, you know what? Maybe a green that matches the... That's not a bad idea. Hold on a minute. Maybe if I match the sticks... Let's see. That's not the worst idea. That's really not a terrible... Well, I'll do it in the same layer. That's really not a terrible idea, actually. Maybe. I say that. We'll see what it looks like, but... I'm kind of thinking that might work okay. Let's see what that looks like before I go either way on it. Let's go ahead and pop that in there, and let's see what that's going to look like. Because that's good, because it'll tie into the, not the sticks, the stirs. I actually don't think that's such a bad idea, because it's good to have kind of, organisms tend to have relational colors. So that might actually work out very well to have the green in here. Yeah, I don't mind that. I don't think it looks bad. I mean, it's probably going to be more varied than that, but I don't mind that as a starting point. I think that's okay. So let's jump back into here. Let's grab our paint. Yeah, we'll be okay with this, because you can see these little line areas here, those are going to be shadowy, so those are going to be darker or lighter, haven't decided yet, versions of whatever the body color ends up being. Now, it's probably going to end up being this teal, because I am kind of digging this color. But if I change my mind, no matter what, those are going to be this area right here, which, well, I didn't really do that correctly, but these little blobby areas that you're seeing in between, throughout the tentacles, or whatever, whipped cream offshoots, so whip shoots. What you're seeing there, these like this. So I'm gonna go around it. That thing in the center there, that line, that will end up being either highlight or shade. I already know that. And then behind, just barely behind, is going to be the coffee color, which we can actually do right now. We can do the coffee color. So we'll do a nice coffee brown, and we'll shoot that behind everything. So this is going to be the actual coffee cup. Yep. And I'm going to be covering that with teal, so I don't really care that it's going over the lines. That's why I'm being sloppy. I shouldn't say sloppy. I'm being a little loose with the coloring there. A little looser than I typically go. There we go. So that's going to be the actual coffee color, and that'll sit behind this. And you'll see that's going to overwrite that, so that's why I don't really care. And let's do this. Oops. And you can see what I mean about it. I do like this teal color. And again, because it's just not, it's a bit of an unusual color. I mean, I could have just gone with a very simple reptile type green. Or I could even have gone with like an octopus type of color, because Cuphulhu is often, I mean, his face is partially, what is the word for octopus? It's not octopine. It's octopus-like. Whatever the scientific term for octopus-like. Cephalopod? I don't know if, is an octopus a cephalopod? I don't even know how you would pronounce cephalopodian. Yeah, whatever. I'm just butchering the language now. English has a bad enough time without me getting involved in redoing it. There's enough mangling of the English language around without me getting my mitts on it. Oops, okay. All right. But this is, yeah, I like this color. And that, again, does not mean it's going to end up being this. Once I've got, the background dropped out, and once I start putting in the shading and everything, this may end up being too dark, too light. I don't think I'll vary the actual hue all that much, but there could be some adjustment on the brightness and darkness of it. Because I think I'm going to make these areas into shadows. If I do that, I might have to go too dark on the shadows, and it might benefit me to lighten the teal a little so that the shadows don't have to be quite as harsh. We'll see. But again, I kind of like using an unusual color for Cuphulhu itself, because it does differentiate a little bit. Like I said, you see, I mean, there's lots of Cuphulhu artwork. You're going to find a lot of it if you look. If you do a search for Cuphulhu, you're going to find a lot of stuff. And some really, really wonderful pieces. But I don't know how many of them are going to be using teal. Now, I'm sure there are people who will watch this and say, yeah, for good reason, idiot. Teal is not a good Cuphulhu color. Well, maybe it isn't. But I think it's going to be my Cuphulhu color. Cuphulhu. It's not Cuphulhu. It's Cuphulhu. I have to admit I'm probably more charmed by that name for myself than anybody else will ever be, but I like it. Cuphulhu. It's just so stupid. And I'm going to go ahead and color in the shadow areas anyway. Just because it lets me see the boundaries of the image and kind of breaks it up a little bit so I can see it better. Yeah, there we go. I think that brown came out. No, it didn't. We're good. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Let's get this one done. Whoop. Okay, do that. come around this. I was listening to a really fantastic podcast right before I started the stream called I Saw What You Did. If you've never heard of it or heard it, and I'm not even going to attempt the women's names because I know I will. Well, number one, I don't remember them well enough to attempt pronouncing them, but I'm sure I would destroy them. But anyway, it's two women. One who is, I believe, I'm going to say a film critic, maybe. And the other works for Turner Classic Movies, I believe, if I have that correct. And they do these pairings of movies. And they're fantastic. I mean, if you're into movies and you want to hear some funny discussion of movies that are often extraordinarily, oops, I forgot to do a thing there, unrelated, you should really listen to it. It's great. They just did one on, oh man, I cannot remember the one. Oh, well, I'll give you a different example. I was just listening now to the one that they did for Flowers in the Attic and Interview with the Vampire. And the theme of the episode was that I never read the book, I think is the theme of the episode. You know, I haven't read the book. I know it's based on a book, but I haven't read it and I never will, or something like that. And so, of course, Flowers in the Attic and Interview with the Vampire are both based on books. I've never seen Flowers in the Attic. I always remember hearing about it when I was younger. It was one of those movies that got a lot of attention because it's got some very taboo subject matter involved, and it's a very kind of sensationalist film. So I know I heard about it. I've always known of the movie, and I know what the content is. But I never really... I remember it being on a few times when I was younger, but I never really had the urge to watch it. I mean, I knew enough about what it was about, and I went, okay, that's not really for me, thank you very much. So I never actually seen it. But like I said, it has a cultural kind of power, and people know about it. So it's likely if you're of a certain age that you know what the movie is and what it's about. And if it isn't, I won't tell you. You can go look it up at your own, if you want to know what it's about. But I think it's safe to say it's not exactly light subject matter. Not something you read to the kids as a bedtime story, let's put it like that. But I never actually saw it. Like I said, I had heard enough about what it was about because it was based on a book that I think itself was rather well known. And I was like, it's okay. As opposed to, what was the other movie I just said? Interview with the Vampire. I remember watching Interview with the Vampire. I read the book long after I'd seen the movie. And for those who don't know, it's by Anne Rice, who was very, very popular for a while doing vampire books. And her vampires are very romanticized creatures. They're very kind of gothic romance type of vampires. Not the brutal vampires you would often see in movies, but very theatrical and exaggerated and, almost relating back to very, very, again, theatrical is probably the right word, very play, like stage play type of vampires. Very interesting. It definitely was a type of vampire that you still see the archetypes of it, kind of the big, over the top, very, very dramatic creatures. And a lot of that, she certainly didn't invent it, but she did popularize it. You saw a lot of the Interview with the Vampire, the Anne Rice style vampire, is still very much, you see it still a lot. I think they just started, AMC I think is going to run a new series of that. Which I'd be interested in watching it, because I thought the movie was good. I didn't love the movie, although that movie also, when it came out, landed big. So that was a big movie at the time. But I wouldn't say that I necessarily loved the movie, but I liked it. I thought it was, it was a good time. And so they did that movie and Flowers in the Attic, which are both movies that, were very big. They were books, and they also had kind of a cultural impact when they came out. So interesting pairings. They do a lot of that type of stuff. That's why I like them. They do these fascinating pairings of movies that might not necessarily seem to go together. I think another one they did, which actually is a very natural pairing, was a natural pairing for what their theme was. And I don't remember the theme, but it was the oh God, what's it called? Stand By Me. Another book adaptation, by the way. I think Deliverance was too. So they did Stand By Me and Deliverance. Now, here again, Deliverance is not a movie. I believe it was based on a book, but I could be wrong about that. But Deliverance is not a movie that you show to the kids. No, 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 no. I saw Deliverance once, and that one went into my, okay, I've seen it, check the box off. I've seen the movie that has a lot of kind of cultural knowledge and awareness, and I never need to watch this again because it was not, it's kind of like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I understand why the movies are known and celebrated, and certainly the performances in them are excellent, but they're not movies I need to watch ever again. I have quite a list of movies that are one and dones. Like, okay, I watched it, and now I'm never going to watch it again for different reasons. Deliverance, I just think, is a very, very, it's a very strong film, and I think I got the message the first time, and I really don't need to be told that message anymore. So that's that one. Whereas One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, that's more of a sad movie. That's more of a movie that depresses me when I watch it. So kind of like, I don't need any more of that. I'm good. So let's go ahead and just do some. We're going to use the same green. We're going to brighten it up, and we're going to drop the saturation a bit, and there's our green. It's kind of my usual. That's my normal tactic for establishing a secondary color for a very bright color like this, is just to drop the saturation and increase the brightness a bit to give it. And these are supposed to be wings. And these, when I originally drew them, I drew them as foamy wings. So I thought maybe I would do the foam color, but that's too much. I think that's going to be too. I think if these were teal, just like the wings, it would be too blended. You wouldn't really get the distinction, and they wouldn't seem as much like wings because they wouldn't have the same color as the stick. So I think that it's important for these to have a lighter related color to the sticks to indicate that they are kind of a thinner version of whatever that material is, if I'm explaining that right. So that's why I'm going to go with the green on these. I don't want to go with the teal on that because I just think that's going to be a lot of that color. And the wings should feel distinct from the rest of the body. So, yeah. So we're going to go with this green here. And then we'll do the wings, and that's probably about where I'll draw the stream for a close. That's English striking again right there. Probably bring this stream to a close for this evening. Because honestly, I wasn't even going to stream because I found my earlier OBS and Streamlabs experimentation to be very frustrating. But I figured, okay, let me see if this solution I've kind of conjured together, which again is these two halves of the picture covering up what... Oh, it froze. Sorry. Didn't realize it froze. Give me a minute. Let me see if I can just stop and restart this. I apologize. I did not notice it till just now. I don't think I was... Wow, how long ago did that stop? Oh, man. I'm going to feel really bad. Did it stop that far back? Or I think it just happened, right? Oh, I hope it did. I'm really sorry. I did not realize. Well, I mean, now instead of dropping the connection, it freezes. So I don't know. Is that an improvement? It's hard to say. I'm just giving it a minute, and it should pop up. No, see, it doesn't. Well, I have to do this and this. Now did it come back? No, why did it not come back? I'm telling you, I just don't understand it. I just do not understand what goes on with this thing. Okay, there we go. Well, there again is a symbol I should probably just draw to a close pretty soon because I don't know, folks. If this keeps up, then I may just stop streaming and I may just go to releasing these on YouTube because I don't know that this stream is, is it enjoyable to have to see me stop and start this all the time? Because I have to now pay attention to the actual, software, which it's just baffling to me. And again, I know there's paid tools out there that would probably do a lot of stuff, but I just don't really feel like that's justified yet. I don't think I have the audience to justify investing any serious money in this. I'd love to at some point. I'd love for people to be tuning in, and I wouldn't want them to see this train wreck, but I don't think I'm there yet. And like I said, if anybody out there who's listening or sees this whenever has an idea, you know what? Maybe I will take advantage of, there's a twit.tv show called iOS Today. I believe they cover more than just iOS. Maybe I will send an email saying, hello, do you know of software that will work like this, that works like this, a couple of different options, and I can try them and see if one of them works better with this software, or if there's one that OBS is more. I know there's lots of people who do this stuff. It's just a matter of finding out, but it's because I really just don't think that fighting with this stream constantly is going to be very fun for anybody, least of all me. So I'm just dreading, and it's not the CPU now, because I'm keeping an eye on the CPU, and the CPU is good. CPU is hovering right around 35%. That's, compared to before, that's fantastic. So I can't really even criticize. I don't think it's a CPU problem anymore. Now I think it's the actual software. I think now it's a software interaction, which is just like, okay, so I went from one problem to another. I don't know, is that progress? Maybe. Yeah, see, that's the wing. The wings are going to look like that. I don't know. So I'm a little bit frustrated by it, so I apologize. I hope it hasn't come through too much on the stream, but I'm just sitting here going, I'm not doing anything that complicated. This really shouldn't be this bad. But we get spoiled. We get spoiled by how good technology is. We just expect everything to work with everything, and we sort of forget how much wizardry is involved in making all this stuff work together. So on the other hand, I'm trying to sit here and not be, overly, taking for granted what exactly is being done here. This is still quite a marvel that this even works like this. If you go back 5-10 years, you didn't even have something like this that could be done as easily as this is being done. So again, I'm trying to keep a little bit of perspective on things, but it does frustrate a bit when I just want to do something simple and it doesn't work. But that's everybody with technology, right? I am not unique in that regard. So in any event, we are about done here. Do a little bit of touch up. I'm going to do a little bit of erasing. I know I got the green. There we go, right there. I got some in there. I think maybe down here. Or am I good? I'm good. So let's do a little bit. Oh, no. Let's go to the pen. Do a little bit of this. Hopefully it doesn't lock up before I finish this. And then we will be done for this evening. We done? Okay. We're going to stop right there, everybody. So that's where we are with Cuphulhu. We're getting there. Getting there. Moving along. There's much more to do, but I'm going to go ahead and stop now, since it's only frozen up on me as far as I could tell once. So we will cut our losses before we get too far down. And I will thank you for stopping by to watch. Sorry about the freezing up on it. And whether it is morning, afternoon, or evening where you are, have a wonderful rest of whatever it is. We'll see you on the next stream, and take care.